Time to fuel your business success. Welcome to Harmonious at Lunch. We're bringing you bite-sized advice and expert conversations to drive clarity and growth 5 days a week. Make sure you join our Facebook group at humanop.com/lunch, where listeners like you and our guests hang out so we can find harmony in business together. If you're building a business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Hey, welcome back to another update of Harmonious at Lunch, another great week of episodes. We're going to dive in this week, but I just want to start with a little PSA. I started this podcast because I listened to a bunch of podcasts in the past. I used to be a podcast junkie. I've probably said that on this show a number of times. And it always seemed like every show about business really only cared about business, that I listened to at least. And I know things have changed recently, but my whole goal was with this show was to build the whole entrepreneur. There's more to life than just business. There's more to business than just business. You have to be a well-rounded person and a well-rounded entrepreneur. And it came to the forefront for me this week. I had a health challenge that interrupted my week. And I was just reminded of all the amazing guests on this show who talk about personal health, physical health, and how that has to be a priority. Not that it wasn't for me, but even if you do prioritize it, those things can come up and they can be scary situations. So I want to continue that focus and maybe even bring more of those people in, because the stress of life, the stress of business, it can catch up with us, and it's a real thing. And if you're dealing with that right now, I feel for you. My heart goes out to you. And it's just something that's kind of top of mind because of my situation. So that's the whole reason I continue to put out these episodes, so that I can meet these people and know them from my own personal Rolodex and experience and have great conversations, but also so you can listen in and so that I can share this knowledge that others have gained and help you become a more well-rounded entrepreneur. But I want to dive in this week with the normal weekly update, the roundup from the past 4 episodes this week. And we had some really great guests. I was really trying hard to have a week of guests where I loved every single episode, but that wasn't the case again. That's okay. 3 out of 4 is not bad. We had 3 really great episodes and then one that it just didn't resonate fully with me, but we'll get into it. We had Peter Awad, Cheryl Einhorn, Paul Flowers, and Dr. Alain Salas. And we went through and we talked about a number of different things. We talked about everything from Jesus on Monday to manifestation on Thursday. And those 2 things typically don't go well together. But we're going to see how it all came out. And I thought it was an interesting week of episodes. A lot can be learned. Let's start with Monday, purpose-driven leadership, Peter Awad. And he was an incredible guest. I love everything about Peter. He's a coach. He's rooted in his faith, which we talked about a lot on the episode. Something that's very, very important to me, and spreading the name of Jesus is a passion of mine. I'm glad I get to do that on this show. And it's a passion of Peter's too. He was absolutely fantastic to sit down and talk with. We had a great conversation. We explored all different things, but really making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people and making sure that you have the right thought process and that you have purpose in your business. He asked a really, really powerful question, or posed a powerful idea on the episode that you can't do everything by yourself, but also, are you happy doing what you're doing? It was one of those moments where I had to think back in my past and say, I probably had that moment where if I asked myself authentically, am I happy doing this? The answer would have been no. And I should have stopped so much sooner. And he gives you the permission to sit back and think and really sit with those questions. And this was an episode that may cut deep for a lot of people. So let's hear what Peter has to say. We'll play a clip from this episode and then we'll move on.
You didn't make yourself. That's ridiculous. And oh, by the way, Christian or not, last I checked, you needed team members and coaches and consultants and vendors and customers. So nobody's self-made. That's crazy. You're not growing your business in a vacuum.
Yeah, it's a great concept. I love that. And so many people say, I'm self-made. I've done this by myself, whatever. No, you didn't. No, no, you didn't. It's one of those things where, again, take a different look at the way you see yourself and the way you see your business. It was a deep conversation. It was an amazing conversation. I strongly recommend, if you haven't already, go back and listen to Monday's episode with Peter Awad. Tuesday's episode, Cheryl Einhorn. This was super cool. She came on talking about how to make better decisions. I'll put the thumbnail on the screen here. Make confident choices, making better decisions, just making sure you have a whole framework about how you make decisions. And this to me is one of those sort of secret sauces to growing a business. If you hire great people, that's part of the equation. You also need to empower them with how to make good decisions. Just having good people really does nothing for you as a business owner, if they can't make good decisions, they can't operate without you, or they can't operate within a framework. So Cheryl's framework, the area method that she's researched and practiced for over a decade, is just one of those things that you can train people to use and make objective decisions based on facts and reality, and take emotions out of it. I love stuff like this. It would reminded me of the book, The Six Thinking Hats. I forget the name of the author off the top of my head, but you can look it up. And it's a decision-making framework. It's a framework to operate within, to just gather the right information and making sure you're objectively making decisions and making the right decisions, and not making impulsive decisions too. There's so much to unpack here. But Cheryl overall was phenomenal. We had some struggles before the episode getting onto the recording platform, but it all worked out. We recorded a great podcast. And then, fun fact, Cheryl's actually coming back for 2 more episodes, one in a couple of weeks, and then one we have scheduled for later this year, to unpack her framework and the types of people in decision making and so many other things. So let's check out what Cheryl had to say here, a clip from the episode.
Well, last week I was in London doing a day of training with female senior executives from around the world. And we were talking about good and bad decisions, which seems like such a deceptively simple question, right? But when you really think about it, who are you answering for? What time period? And how do you actually know? Because any moment in time that you assess a decision is like a balance sheet effect. It's just that moment. If you look at it in 2 weeks or in 10 years, you may actually ascribe an entirely different answer, good or bad, to it. And what they all seem to be saying is that it could be a decision with a bad outcome and still be a good decision.
Yeah, we unpacked so much on that episode, and it was just really great to hear that it's something that you can learn. I've heard a lot of people say, they make good decisions, they make bad decisions, they're a slow decision maker, they're a quick decision maker. Kind of takes all of that out of it and brings it back to just the objective reality of, well, if we follow this process, we're going to make the best decision based on the information available, and we can make it with confidence. And at the end of the day, that's all we really want as business owners when we're making any decision, whether it impacts us, our teams, our customers, the marketplace. We want to just be confident and know that we did the right thing with the information present. Get the second guessing out of the way. Moving on, that was a great episode. And again, Cheryl's coming back in a couple of weeks. But Wednesday's episode with Paul Flowers, Paul was phenomenal, great guest. And we talked about building great teams through love and authenticity. This might be considered a woo topic, but it wasn't. He brought it down to real world experience and exercises that he's done with his teams and his people in the past. And I fully believe in this. I think if you are not, this is why we exist as Human Op, right? To show you who you authentically are and help you operate in alignment with that. If you're not being authentic, if you're putting on a facade, or you're trying to show up in a way you think someone else wants you to show up, you erode trust. It's impossible to build trust. If you can find a way to operate within your authentic self, your authentic being, trust builds faster. You have the ability to lead with love, like Paul is saying. You have the ability to actually lead in a manner that people will want to follow. And it's so powerful when you actually embrace it. The crazy part, though, is that we're actually not taught how to discover our authentic self. We're taught to read books and mimic other leaders and do what other people do and pretend. And the list goes on and on and on. And if you can just take a step back and discover who you authentically are, again, humanop.com, we can help you do that through our app. It's free. If you can do that and step into it and embody that version of you, your unique self, you can actually lead with authenticity and take your leadership to the next level. Paul's episode, we went through all of that. He shared some amazing principles that he's used throughout the years to grow his teams and his company. Let's hear what he has to say, and then we'll move on to the next episode.
But by June, when things get tough and you're just looking at them for the numbers, are they going to perform for you? Right now, if love and authenticity and connectedness are present, absolutely. They'll go through animals and family members passing to needing to change homes or physical injuries. They will go through these things or grow through these things, as I like to say, and perform at the highest and even higher levels when certain things are present. But when they're not present, Brandon, anything can take them out. Anything can take them out. Oh, I scratched my arm on the desk. I've got to go home sick for a week, right?
Yeah, that's happened to me a number of times with employees in the past. And if I look back and think about it, I wasn't being authentically me and I wasn't caring about those people, and anything really did take them out. You look at high performing teams and other teams that I've led, and they, just like Paul said, they would run through brick walls for the mission of that company and to be on that team and for the other people on that team. And if you can just root your leadership in who you authentically are and lead with love and lead by example, that stuff really all is true. And that's how you take your business to the next level. And that's how you really start to scale your business. You can do it by a dictator and tyrannical leadership. It's just not going to be as fulfilling for sure. And it's definitely not going to last as long. So go check out that episode. And thanks to Paul for stopping by. I was actually on Paul's podcast too. And we had a great conversation about the human op technology and how we want to help people step into that authenticity from a scientific perspective. So I would go check that out too. Should be in the show notes, either down below this one or down below that episode, but go check that out. Last but not least, Dr. Alain Salas, and he was a great guy. Here, I'll put the thumbnail on the screen here if you're watching. Crush Your Limits. But this episode, I just couldn't really get into myself. There was some interesting concepts, but it's stuff that, I've definitely heard from other places about deleting limiting beliefs. And, some of the things were cool about you don't have to go through this lengthy process to like rewire your system. You can just choose to do it. I would have loved to see a little bit more action in the episode, action steps, next steps, whatever you want to call it. But for me, it wasn't my favorite episode of the week. There was still some valuable content in it though. Let's hear what Alan has to say here, and then we'll wrap up this episode.
And after number 3, you want to make sure, as you know, if you start a business and you say, oh, I think I'm going to start a business, I feel good about it. But if you don't take any action, that's a fantasy. It never is going to happen, right? And so number 3, you want to make sure that you manifest that into your life, and you take, the first step, right? And so that's how we do the first phase, just to make sure we clear as much as possible. Our mind is working for you, Brandon, instead of against you.
Yeah, it's a great reminder to just make sure your mind is in the right place. And then now that I sit and think about it, it was really, for me, I want to bring on guests on the show who add value and give without the expectation of return. If you go and take action on whatever their call to action is, that's fantastic. And I hope some of these things do help you and you do take action. But for me, on that episode in particular, now that I'm thinking about it, I remember it was at least 2 minutes at the end of the episode was sort of a sales pitch to upgrade into the program or whatever it was. And it rubbed me the wrong way. So the content was good. It was just the ending of the episode that I wasn't in love with, but that's okay. We live, we learn, we move on, and you always have the option to say no or just not take action. So the power is in your hands, but I want to hold that commitment to bringing you high quality guests, great conversations, and really, really valuable content that you can continue to use to run, grow, and scale your business. And your life. Let's not forget about that. Bring this full circle. So I'm excited about this week's episodes. I hope you listen to all of them. We have another 4 incredible guests already lined up for next week. I'm excited for these conversations, and we're going to unpack them again next Friday. I'll give you the behind the scenes. I'll give you the details, the things I pulled from it, what I liked, what I didn't. I hope to see you there, and I hope you subscribe to more Harmonious at Lunch. Help us grow this audience and help more business owners build a more harmonious business and life. We'll see you next week.
Another episode of Harmonious at Lunch in the books. I hope this episode made you think and you grabbed some actionable ideas to propel your business. Don't forget to like, comment your takeaways, and subscribe wherever you're listening so we can help more entrepreneurs just like you achieve harmony in your life and business. For cutting-edge tools that bring clarity to your people and processes, check out humanoff.com to download our app today. See you next time.